Lena Carver didn't cry when her father shoved her forward. She'd cried enough for him in 19 years. What broke her breath was the man waiting on the other side of the saloon table, Rafe Maddox, the outlaw people said, killed without blinking. He didn't touch the coin, Jeb Carver demanded. He didn't even look at Lena like a buyer looks at property. He looked at her father. That all she's worth to you? Rafe asked, voice flat as cold iron. Jeb shrugged. She eats more than she earns. Lena braced for Rafe to laugh, to drag her out, to prove every rumor right. Instead, Rafe pushed the coin pouch across the table with one finger. Deal's done. Leave. Her father grabbed the money and vanished before she could blink. She felt the emptiness he left behind more than the fear. Rafe stood. Tall, broad-shouldered, scar on his jaw that made his expression unreadable. Come on, he said. No threat. No comfort. Just command. Outside, his horse waited, huge, dark, mean-looking. Lena froze. Men inside the saloon watched from the windows, whispering bets about how long she'd last. Rafe noticed their grins and shifted his body subtly, blocking their view. Up you go, he said. Not rough, almost careful. He lifted her onto the saddle like she weighed nothing. She expected his hands to linger. They didn't. The ride north was silent except for wind and the nervous thump of her heartbeat. Rafe didn't speak, but he watched everything: the trail, the tree line, the sky, as if danger breathed in all three. A man who'd lived too long by staying ahead of threats. When the outlaw camp came into view, Lena's stomach twisted. Firelight, men sharpening knives, horses tied to posts, laughter too loud to be kind. She clung to the saddle horn, waiting for the moment she'd be handed off like a bottle passed around. Rafe dismounted first. Stay close, he said. Again, not threatening. Protective. A man with missing teeth smirked at Lena. Boss, what you want done with? Rafe's glare cut him off. She's under my protection. The camp went dead quiet. Protection? From Rafe Maddox? No one dared question him, but the shock traveled like a ripple. Lena pulled her shawl tighter, still expecting the cruelty she knew too well. Rafe led her toward a small canvas tent at the far edge of camp, away from the drinking, the cards, the men whose eyes lingered too long. He pulled back the flap. Inside waited a bedroll, a blanket, and a tin cup filled with water. I'll post a guard, he said. Lena stared at him, unable to understand. Why? Rafe didn't answer. Instead, he stepped back, scanning the camp like a wolf scenting danger. No one comes near you. Not without my say. Then she saw it, just for a moment, something in his eyes that wasn't cruelty. Something closer to recognition. Or guilt. Or something she didn't have a name for yet. Before she could speak, a rider thundered into the clearing, dust spiraling around the horse's legs. Rafe, the man shouted. Cal Vance is back in the territory. The camp tensed. And Rafe Maddox stepped between Lena and the rider as if it were instinct. Rafe Maddox didn't explain why he put a guard outside Lena Carver's tent. He simply barked the order, and the men obeyed without daring to question him. By morning, the whole camp buzzed with quiet confusion. Rafe didn't protect anyone, not even himself. Lena stepped out of the tent clutching the blanket he'd given her. She half expected it to be snatched from her hands, the way things always were at home. Instead, Mira Dawson, the camp healer, waved her over with a small smile. Breakfast, Mira said, handing her a tin plate. Sit. Eat slow. The boys'll stare less once they realize you're not made of glass. Lena wasn't sure about that. Men's stares had never softened before. Across the fire, Rafe watched the camp with arms crossed. He scanned the men one by one, pausing only when their gazes lingered on Lena too long. Each time, those men suddenly found something else to look at. Lena tried not to notice. When a drunken outlaw named Hatch stumbled toward her, grinning with the confidence of someone who'd never been stopped, Lena froze. His hand stretched toward her shawl. Before she could pull away, someone grabbed Hatch by the collar. Rafe. He slammed Hatch into the dirt so hard the entire camp went still. She's not yours to bother, Rafe said, voice low and deadly. Hatch sputtered. Boss, I wasn't. Rafe crouched beside him. Try again and you'll lose that hand. No one laughed. No one joked. Hatch crawled away like a whipped dog. Lena stared at Rafe, breath shaking. She'd been defended before by no one. Rafe didn't look at her. He turned away as if nothing had happened, but something in the tightness of his jaw said he'd expected the moment. Prepared for it. Mira leaned close to Lena. "He doesn't do that for people," she whispered. "Not even for me." Lena didn't know what to say. She simply held her plate tighter. As the day went on, Mira kept Lena nearby, teaching her small tasks, sorting herbs, folding clean bandages, grinding willow bark. They worked in silence, but Myra's presence felt steady, almost protective. "You're safe here," Mira murmured once, not looking up from her mortar. "As long as Rafe wants you safe." Lena swallowed hard. "Why would he?" "That," Mira said, "is what has every man in camp confused." From across the clearing, Rafe kept glancing over, not at the work, but at Lena herself, as if making sure she hadn't vanished. By afternoon, the wind shifted, carrying dust and the heavy scent of approaching danger. A scout rode in, breathless. "Rafe!" he shouted. Calvance's riders were spotted near the ridge. The name made even the toughest outlaws straighten. Calvance, leader of the rival gang, known for cruelty that made Rafe's reputation look almost merciful by comparison. Rafe's eyes narrowed. "How close?" "Close enough to see the smoke from our fires." Rafe looked toward Lena instinctively, something she noticed, something everyone noticed. Then he issued orders with the sharp efficiency of a man used to surviving threats. "Move the horses, double the night watches, shift the camp perimeter." Lena had seen men afraid before, but this wasn't fear, it was preparation. Mira tugged Lena closer to the healer's tent. "Vance takes what he wants," she said quietly. "And he hates being told no." Lena's heartbeat thudded. Rafe walked over, stopping a few steps from her. His voice was steady, but his eyes were anything but indifferent. "You stay near Mira tonight," he said. "No wandering." "Understand." Lena nodded, though her voice failed her. Rafe turned away, but not before she caught it. A flicker of something in his expression. Not duty. Not ownership. Something closer to worry. Something frighteningly close to care. Snow began drifting in by morning. Thin flakes carried on a wind that promised worse. Lena Carver wrapped her shawl tighter, though cold wasn't what made her tremble. It was the way the outlaw camp moved, quiet, sharp, alert. Every man had a gun within reach. Every laugh had disappeared. Rafe Maddox was different too. Harder. Focused. He stood near the horses with two of his men, marking something in the dirt with a stick. Tracks, Lena realized. Calvance's tracks. Mira Dawson kept Lena busy grinding herbs, but Lena's eyes kept drifting to Rafe. Every few minutes, he'd glance toward her tent, toward Myra's table, toward the shadows where trouble might crawl in. She didn't understand why he cared, but she couldn't stop noticing that he did. Later, as Lena carried firewood toward Myra's tent, she stumbled on a loose rock. The wood spilled, clattering loudly. A man at the edge of camp jerked his gun up in pure instinct. Rafe was there before Lena could blink. "Easy," he snapped at the man, stepping between him and Lena. "She drops wood, not grenades." The men snickered, tension broken, but Rafe didn't move until Lena was steady again. "You hurt?" he asked quietly. "No," she whispered, surprised by her own voice. He nodded once and walked off without another word, but the cold in her chest eased by a margin she didn't expect. As dusk approached, the first alarm whistle sounded from the lookout post. Men cursed. Guns came out. Lena froze as boots thundered around her. "Positions," someone shouted. Rafe grabbed a rifle and moved toward the ridge. "Mira, get her inside." Mira shoved Lena into the healer's tent and kicked snow against the flap. On the ground, she ordered. "Stay low and don't move unless I say." Lena crouched, heart pounding so hard she felt it in her throat. Outside, Rafe's voice cut through the chaos, short, sharp commands. Gun clicks followed. Horses snorted nervously. A shot cracked the silence. Lena jolted. Mira grabbed her wrist. "Don't move." Another shot. Then another. And then silence. A long, heavy silence broken only by the wind. Lena pressed a hand over her mouth. She prayed Rafe hadn't been the one hit. She didn't know why the thought tore through her so violently. She only knew it did. Footsteps approached. Mira tensed, hand on the small knife she kept for emergencies. The tent flap lifted. Rafe ducked inside. He wasn't bleeding. He wasn't limping. But his face was carved with tension. "They were scouts," he said. "Vance's men. Testing our line." "Any hurt?" Mira asked. "Not ours." Rafe scrubbed a hand over his jaw. "But Vance knows we're here. He wanted us to know he's close." Lena sat frozen, staring up at him. Rafe noticed. He sank to a knee in front of her, not close enough to touch, but close enough she could feel the heat of him. "You're safe tonight," he said quietly. "Do you hear me? No one is getting near you." The words struck deeper than they should have. No one had ever said them to her. Not and meant them. When he stood to leave, a gust of wind tore through camp, scattering snow like ash. Rafe looked toward the dark ridge where Cal Vance hid in the trees. His jaw locked. Lena realized the truth then, not from his words, but from the way he squared his shoulders. Rafe Maddox wasn't preparing for a fight. He was preparing for a war. And she was the reason. Rafe Maddox didn't sleep that night. Lena Carver could hear him outside the healer's tent, pacing slow circles around the dying fire, boots crunching in the snow. At dawn, he made the decision the entire camp had been avoiding. "We move," Rafe ordered. "Now. Pack light." Men groaned, but no one argued. Cal Vance had come too close, and everyone knew Rafe didn't run unless the alternative was worse. Mira Dawson tightened the straps on her satchel, then helped Lena wrap cloth around her hands. "The mountains bite colder than men do," she said quietly. "Stay between us." Rafe brought over a horse, his own. "She rides with me," he said before anyone could question it. Lena hesitated only a heartbeat before climbing up in front of him. The warmth of his coat wrapped around her as he settled behind her, steady and solid. She expected to feel trapped. Instead, she felt steadied. They left camp fast, snow spraying from the horses' hooves as the narrow trail climbed toward the high ridges. Below them, the outlaw camp shrank into a cluster of dying embers, left behind like a life that could no longer hold. Hours passed in white silence. Rafe didn't speak, but Lena felt the tension in him, the way he scanned the tree line, the way his arm braced around her each time the horse stumbled on ice. A man shaped by violence, moving with the protectiveness of someone afraid to lose something he hadn't meant to care about. "You're shaking," he murmured once. "It's cold," she lied. He only pulled her closer. By noon, snow fell thicker. The sky dimmed into a storm gray warning. Myra's horse struggled through a drift, and Rafe slowed, guiding Lena's hands to the horn of the saddle. "Lean with the movement," he said. "Don't fight it." She did. It surprised her how natural it felt, trusting someone's instruction instead of someone's anger. Near dusk, Rafe spotted an abandoned trapper's cabin tucked between boulders. Smoke had long since died in its chimney, but it had a roof, and that was enough. "We'll shelter here," he said. Inside, the air was stale and freezing. Rafe kicked snow aside, then checked every corner, every shadow, like a man who'd learned long ago that safety was never assumed. Mira started a fire while Lena helped gather wood. She moved carefully, remembering how dropping it yesterday had nearly gotten a gun pointed at her. Rafe noticed her flinch. "You can breathe," he said quietly. "Nobody here's waiting for you to fail." The sentence landed in her chest like warmth. Later, as wind howled against the cabin walls, Rafe sat near the doorway, gun in hand. He hadn't removed his coat. He hadn't closed his eyes. Lena watched him from beside the fire. "You haven't eaten," she said. "Not hungry." She hesitated, then crossed the small room and placed a piece of dried meat near him. He didn't look up, but his hand closed around it. Outside, a distant echo cracked through the storm, too sharp to be wind. "A horse." Myra's head snapped up. "They found us." Rafe didn't answer. He moved to the window, every muscle drawn tight. Lena waited for him to tell her to run, to hide, to disappear. Instead, he stepped in front of her, positioning himself between her and the door as naturally as breathing. And she finally understood. He wasn't just protecting her. He was preparing to fight for her. The horse outside didn't move. It snorted once, pawing the snow, then fell silent again. Rafe Maddox stood at the window of the trapper's cabin, jaw clenched, every instinct honed from years of ambushes sharpening at once. Mira Dawson moved Lena Carver behind her, but Rafe lifted a hand. "Stay together," he said. "If it's Cal Vance, running won't save you." The door burst inward before he finished the sentence. Cal Vance, the rival outlaw leader, stepped in with 3 men, snow clinging to their coats, rifles already raised. He grinned when his eyes found Lena. "So this is the girl," Cal said. "The one you're hiding like she's gold." Rafe didn't reach for his gun first. He stepped in front of Lena, blocking Cal's view, body angled like a shield formed from instinct, not thought. "You're not touching her." Cal laughed. Rafe, you're losing your edge. Since when do you fight for something that ain't yours?" Lena felt her breath vanish. She'd been called many things in her life: burden, debt, mistake. Never something worth fighting for. Cal lifted his rifle. "Step aside." Rafe didn't move. "No." Everything exploded at once. The cabin erupted in gunfire, smoke filling the cramped air. Mira shoved Lena under the table as Rafe fired back, bullets cracking splinters from the walls. Rafe moved with a fury Lena had never seen in any man, not wild, but deadly precise. Every shot he made was controlled, purposeful, aimed to keep danger away from her. A bullet grazed Rafe's arm, tearing fabric and drawing blood. He didn't slow. Another outlaw lunged through the doorway. Rafe slammed him to the ground and put him down with cold efficiency. But Cal was still standing. He fired toward the table, the shot slicing the air so close Lena felt the wood beside her shudder. She whimpered despite herself. That sound, her fear, sent Rafe forward like a storm breaking loose. He tackled Cal, the two crashing into the wall with enough force to shake snow from the roof. Cal clawed for his knife, but Rafe was faster. Rage burned through every movement, not ruthless rage, but protective, furious, human. A final shot echoed. Cal's body hit the floor. Silence followed. Thick. Heavy. Shivering through Lena's bones. Rafe staggered, gripping his bleeding arm. Lena crawled out from under the table and reached him before Mira could. "Sit," she insisted, voice trembling. "Please." He sank onto a crate, breath rough. She pressed cloth to his wound with shaking hands. "You could have died," she whispered. "I wasn't planning on it," he muttered. "That's not what I mean." Rafe looked at her then, really looked, and Lena saw something break open in him. Something he'd sworn long ago never to feel again. "I didn't buy you," he said quietly. "I didn't want you like that. But once you were here, I couldn't let anyone take you. Not him. Not anyone." Lena's eyes filled. "Why me?" He swallowed. "Because you look at me like I'm a man. Not a monster." She touched his jaw, gentle as falling snow. "You've never been a monster." For the first time since she'd met him, Rafe reached for her, not out of possession, not out of command, but out of something fragile and new. Their foreheads touched, breath mingling in the cold cabin air. When they finally left the mountains days later, it wasn't as outlaw and captive. It was as two people who had survived something dark and chosen each other in the light that followed. And every step Rafe took, he stayed a half pace closer to Lena, as if guarding something sacred. Something he'd die for. Something he'd finally let himself live for.